Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called the NSF, but the mother has went through a wall. Came home, now they can't find her. They've been feeling for her.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Chad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Please let me know, chat, if you can hear me. Today we'll be talking about Kouri Richins, who is the mother from Utah who poisoned her husband with a lethal dose of fentanyl. So that's what we will be diving into today. And thank you all for being here. Hello, Holly, it's good to see you. And hi, Mel Mac, Candy Kane, everyone who's here, Delana, Carol freaking Claus, Leo. So good to see you all here. Hi, Adrian. I hope all the dads had a good Father's Day over the weekend. And yeah, so I want to get into this case. They had the bail hearing last week. She got denied bail or bond, whatever. Anyways, I think that I just want to play my pre-recorded clips for you guys that I've put together. It's around 12-ish minutes. And then I just want to jump right into a little bit of her in court and other information. So thank you for letting me know that you can hear me, and thank you everyone for being here. Hello, Caroline and Jody. Got my coffee here, and yeah, good morning everyone. So let me just play my stuff, and I'll pause and talk and all that and share your thoughts also.
Welcome to ATS News.
Kouri Richins met her husband Eric while she was working as a clerk at Home Depot. Eric frequented there often because he co-founded a stone masonry business. Eric is described as a blue-eyed all-American man who was a doting father, a coach, and an avid hunter and an enthusiastic outdoorsman. Although it was clear after 10 years together and married with kids, their marriage was falling apart. Even though he suspected his wife of cheating on him throughout their marriage, he stayed for the sake of the children. He didn't want them to grow up in a broken home. Now, those quotes are coming directly from the family attorney of the Richins. So his family attorney has been on news networks, and he pretty much came out saying that he just didn't want the boys to grow up in a broken home. So even though things were falling apart, etc., he stuck around for the sake of the children, which I know a lot of people end up doing. And he was just doing what he thought was right, even though, yeah, it does seem to be a mistake. And the Jody, the cheating has been rumored to be on both sides. And there has been no evidence that Eric cheated, but it seems like even the family attorney is aware of Kouri being the one who cheated. I don't know. It's just what I've been hearing. If you guys have heard otherwise, please let me know. So how exactly did Kouri go from this to that? Many want to know and figure this out. Fast forward to March 3rd, 2022, when they were celebrating her closing on a house as she is a realtor. By 9 p.m., Kouri admits that she made and gave Eric a Moscow Mule. She then leaves the room. One of the children have a night terror, so she sleeps in their room with the child and leaves her cell phone in the master bedroom plugged in. However, court records indicate that her phone was actually active during this time, and the forensics showed that texts were sent and received and then deleted. By 3 a.m., Kouri returns to the master bedroom. By 3:31, first responders arrive.
Kouri Richins told authorities she found her 39-year-old husband, Eric, cold to the touch.
They figured out that the fentanyl was illicit, not medical, and that it was ingested. She also claimed that she had given Eric CPR, and the medical examiner determined that that was a lie. Eric's family was happy to see that the judge denied her bond and her family was there supporting her. As more information came out about the history of their relationship, we find out that this wasn't the only time that she tried to poison Eric.
Before he died, Kouri Richins had gotten very ill after a Valentine's Day dinner with his wife. Eric told a friend that he thought his wife was trying to poison him, the documents say.
Very soon after his death, she even wrote a children's book on dealing with grief and contacted a local news station. And pretty much my understanding is she asked to go on the show to promote her book.
It's dedicated to my amazing husband and a wonderful father.
Dad is still here. It's just in a different way. My kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced. He's 39. It completely took us all by shock.
Many have wanted to know why, if this was not the only time that she tried to poison him, didn't Eric make an effort to get out of the relationship or to get out of the marriage quicker? And come to find out, that's exactly what he was doing behind the scenes. Their family lawyer had this to say.
He was starting that. And I think that's what finally ended the whole thing. I think she was wise to the fact that he had started looking into the divorce process. He had started moving his assets around. He started protecting his boys, making sure that they were going to be taken care of. And that seems to have been the tipping point where she couldn't simply stand by anymore and finally did what she's alleged to have done here, which is take his life. But he was conscious of what was going on. He was aware of it. He knew what was happening. He knew that he wanted to keep the family together, but I think he could see the writing on the wall, and he did. He was starting to take some steps to get a divorce.
You know, Kouri's attorneys are arguing there was no evidence that she would financially benefit from her husband's death. What is your take on that? Are they wrong?
They're absolutely wrong. She benefited in so many ways, and she did benefit on his death. I mean, within hours of his death, she was having his personal safe drilled, which we believe had tens of thousands of dollars in cash in it. So there was significant gain for her, both with respect to his estate, with respect to items that were left in the home, and other things. So no, he was better off for her dead than alive financially.
According to court documents, it also shows that Kouri hosted a party the day after he died. During the investigation of her husband's death, she even takes it upon herself to reach out to the detective investigating the case and explain a few things that she didn't want to leave unexplained. Some think that she might have even been fishing for information on the case. I feel like she's either fishing for information when we listen to this email exchange, or, she's trying to lead the investigation in a certain direction by, painting the narrative herself in hopes that the detective would just cling on to everything she's saying and believe, oh no, this mom and wife could never do this to her husband. So it's interesting to hear everything that she states. There is a transcript from the body cam of the night that all this went down, and when they arrived, the first responders are there, etc. And Kouri is in the transcript pretty much, just like, oh my God, like, you can just tell that she's putting on a show because she tries to blame the fact that they got COVID. Maybe this is why, he didn't wake up. She also drops the hint that he had just gotten allergy shots. So maybe that's what's going on. She also hinted at, what was the other thing she tried to blame it on? That he sometimes takes THC gummies, and maybe he had taken some that night and they were laced. Now, she doesn't say those words, but she's dropping these types of hints in the body cam footage and calls to get her mother over there. And her mother, of course, is in the same like stunned kind of, oh my gosh, type of state. At one point, Kouri in the body cam footage finds out that the children were made aware that the father is passed, and Kouri is a bit upset and wants to know like who told the kids like during the body cam stuff going on. So hopefully we get to see the actual video of that soon. But as of right now, there's only a transcript out there, and I know that CDT read through the transcript last week. So if anyone wants to check that out, her channel is always listed in my description box. So again, these are the emails that she took upon herself to email one of the lead detectives on the case.
And many believe that she's fishing or painting the narrative, or maybe hoping for reassurance from the detective, like, oh, thank you for reaching out. We've got it handled, or, something like that. And good morning, MK, and everyone else who has joined. Caroline, it's good to see you. Search and Rescue Mom, Megan, Princess Megan, Elsa, everyone who's joined, thank you so much for being here. If you haven't hit like, just please hit like, and we'll listen to this email exchange with Kouri and the detective. Hello, Riddler.
I thought I would clarify some other items on your list that you spoke to.
Redacted.
About. The beginning of February last year, my kids had a soccer tournament in Mesquite. The day before we left, February 2nd, 2022, I tested positive for COVID. I have attached the picture of my test from on my counter in the kitchen from when I first found out. Photo 1. I had sent it to my mom and...
Redacted.
To let them know because I was just around both of them. Eric was the coach of the soccer team, and I'm the annoying mom on the sideline that never stops yelling. We didn't miss games or tournaments. We're a huge soccer family. When we found out I had COVID, I didn't want to miss the soccer tournament, nor did I want my kids to get sick. So I stayed at Casablanca. I didn't want to risk getting my boys ill during the tournament and then not play well. I brought a box of home tests with me to test every day so I could either join the boys staying at my father-in-law's or at least be with them during the game. Casablanca is about 5 minutes from the soccer field. Actually, there is a picture of the room number I stayed in. I had taken a picture for my mom and Eric. I would take pictures of my test to Eric to say, still positive. You can check Eric's phone for this. I stood on the sidelines wearing a mask and not interacting with anyone. Happy to get other soccer parents to attest to this. Eric had gotten COVID after we got home from Mesquite. You asked?
Redacted.
About any exotic vacations I have taken since Eric's passing. I went on 2 trips last year. One, my kids tried out at soccer camp in SLC to qualify to play in Spain in June, and both my kids made it. So yes, I took them to Spain in October 2022. I have attached their invitation letters. Also, Eric and I went to Mexico every year, sometimes twice. We traveled a lot. We have taken the boys to Mexico a few times. We like to go in January. However, January of 2022, we could not go because Eric had his hunting trip to Mexico trip of 2 weeks planned, and it was too much that month. This is not new for us to go to Mexico, or for us to go out of the country or on a vacation with our kids. I took my kids and my mom came with us in August of 2022. As I hope you understand, the months prior to this, since Eric's death, have been hard to deal with. No, I have never been to Key West or the Keys in Florida. However, my nanny went with her family in June 2022, so maybe you have something mixed up. Eric's affair was the same year I moved out. The trust was created, as well as him looking into a divorce. I never actually moved out. I moved my clothes out one weekend to make Eric understand I'm not kidding about leaving him if he doesn't end things with
Redacted.
I did this on a Thursday or Friday while he was out of town. I was home Monday. I never stayed another night at that other house. Eric and I figured things out like most couples do.
Redacted.
Was her name. He changed her name in his phone so I wouldn't know about it. And honestly, we worked things out, and after that, I never went through his phone again to see if he changed it back, but you have his phone and can check. Eric and I went to
Redacted.
Counseling in Camas, 801.
Redacted.
We only went about 4 times. Maybe it wasn't for us.
Redacted.
And
Redacted.
Are the same person, as I'm assuming you know that. Haha. I'm also assuming
Redacted.
Told Woody her husband got a call from him and gave him all this information. LOL. Yet he didn't ever go and talk to detectives. Ironic how these things work. Mental health. Yes, I got postpartum after my second child in 2014. Yes, I took medication for it. No, Eric and I did not have financial problems ever. Yes, Eric made more money than me. Do you make more money than your wives? Have I ever been financially reliant on Eric in the last 5 years? Absolutely not. Eric did not want me working because 1, his first wife cheated on him with a guy at work. 2,
Redacted.
3, Eric wanted us to live in the typical conservative life where the man takes care of his family and the wife is a homemaker. Wife, mom, and that's it. That is not my personality and not the way I was raised. I'm very independent. Even when I stayed home with my kids the first few years, I was in grad school for years because I wanted to be more and do more than be a homemaker. And when I did and started my business, it took some adjusting, but Eric and I were fine with it. We hired my nanny and everything worked out. My nanny?
Redacted.
801.
Redacted.
Moved out because she was engaged and she and her fiance were moving in together. That was always supposed to be temporary. She's worked full-time for Eric and I for years prior to his death. If anyone can tell you about our marriage, it's her. She lived with us. Feel free to call her.
Redacted.
Has already submitted her phone records to you to prove that your toll is incorrect.
Redacted.
We'll also be submitting hers over to you guys today or tomorrow. I am working on getting mine. However, Eric's business partner is not being cooperative, but you can call
Redacted.
and ask for them, and he would probably give them to you. 801.
Redacted.
I know what time I went to bed that night. There was no hole in my story. Hopefully by obtaining 4 phone record documentation, you guys can see this too. Happy to clarify or provide anything else you may need. I just want this over. I just want our lives back and move on and grieve and mourn my husband without looking over my shoulder constantly for you guys, or the idiotic private investigator, or the Richins family. Whatever I can do to help close this out, just ask. I'll give you whatever you want to know. Please check with the lab on those gummies. Yes, Chad, I heard you also know our good friends.
Redacted.
Their son and my son play on the same soccer team. When Eric passed,
Redacted.
took over coaching. You guys should even chat with them if you feel necessary. Kouri Richins.
Thanks for the clarification, Kouri. I don't know that it matters either, but I appreciate the communication.
So she gets back a very short, very direct message from the detective, no elaboration. The extramarital, and good morning, Lames Bond, and Allison, Andrea, Diane. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I haven't seen anyone come forward or be shown as the extramarital affair. It's just been mentioned. So it's been mentioned by Kouri in these emails about him having one, but no proof. And then I have earlier in the stream clips. No, I'm sorry. It's from a New York Post article where the family attorney is in it. And he pretty much says, his name is Greg Scordes, and he is acting as a spokesperson for the Richins family. He did an interview and he pretty much says he lived for those boys. I believe he would have stayed in a less than desirable relationship if it meant he could do right by them. He goes on to say Eric had reason to believe his wife had been carrying on an affair throughout their 10-year marriage and also feared for his safety. Says Eric very much was in love with his wife, even though he suspected she was trying to kill him. He said at one point, he claims that Eric said, if something happens to me, check Kouri. I think she's trying to kill me. And yeah, so pretty much it's just been alleged that by the family attorney, so that's interesting that throughout the 10-year marriage, there was possibly an affair on her part. But yet here we have Kouri saying that it was Eric. So when things get further along in court and all that, it's going to be very interesting to see what does transpire. And did you guys hear when at the end of the email here, when she was talking about the soccer person that they know, like a mutual person, and then she says something about the PI, the private investigator, and hello, Llama Mama. She says something like, or you can check with that private investigator, something like, it just sounded like she had like extra disdain for this PI. And we're going to see him in the hearing too, when we watch that. So Malmac said, yes, and Kouri, everything you say can or will be used against you. Hence, thanks for the correspondence. Right. Good morning, Titanium Bill. Yeah, she just couldn't help herself to like reach out. And that it reminded me so much of like NK, and like she reminds me of Jodi Arias too, but particularly this email exchange, because it just reminded me of her, NK from the Watts case, the mistress. And I know that she was never found guilty or anything like that, but guys, the investigation ended because of the plea deal. Anyways, that's a whole other story. But there's a part in that case where the mistress text messages the one of the state detectives. His name's Detective Agent Kobach. I like to get their name out there just so that they know we haven't forgot them. But she has an exchange with Agent Kobach through text at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and she's asking if Chris signs a plea deal, does everything go away? And stuff like that, and just saying, oh, I remembered one more thing. And, it just reminds me of these emails with Kouri and this detective. She had to reach out and like clarify, these trips that were, that she was seeing going on, because she went to Mexico and all that after he had passed, like within months. I believe the Mexico trip with her boys was October and he passed in August, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Yeah, Kouri, I think Vinny from Court TV was sort of comparing her to Jodi Arias too, like in a small sense, nothing deep or anything, but I think it would be interesting to kind of go deeper and see once we get to know Kouri a little bit more, like, is there similarities? Okay, let me see what else I have clipped in here too before we get to the PI speaking on the stand at the hearing. And thank you all for being here. If you haven't hit like or subscribed, please do so. Crafty Chris says, did you hear the hot mic moment at the end of the bail hearing where she told her lawyer that she isn't going to make it? Yes. So was that at the end for sure, or was it the beginning? March. He passed in March. Thank you, Midwest Mima. And her trips were in October. So it really wasn't that much time in between, you know, the death and then that her leaving the country. But I did see that Plunder clipped the clip, Crafty Chris, and I thought that was very interesting. And her lawyer was there telling her that she needs to be strong, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this woman is clearly weak on many levels and not very smart. So let me just continue playing, and thank you all for being here.
Best, Chad.
Prosecutors claim she killed Eric Richins, her husband of 9 years, with a lethal dose of fentanyl and searched.
What is a lethal dose of fentanyl? Luxury prisons for the rich in America. Can cops force you to do a lie detector test? Also, if the death certificate says pending, will life insurance still pay?
So Kouri Richins is the mother we're talking about. She's charged with killing her husband last year with a fentanyl-laced cocktail. And the day after his death, Richins closed out a new home, hosted a large party where she was seen drinking and celebrating. A lot of evidence here against Richins laid out in the affidavit. Do you see this as a so-called open and shut case, or what does the prosecution have to prove here?
Now, this is a news clip, and I'm curious before he gives his opinion, what chat and maybe replay viewers, thank you for listening. Comment down below, like at this point, do you think that, you know, if the state has a strong case against Kouri? From everything that you guys, that we know so far, you know, she said that her phone was plugged in, come to find out it showed activity and text messages that she had deleted, etc. We know that there is somebody named CL in the affidavit in the court documents, which seems to be a protected witness, as well as the person who, you know, helped her get these illicit drugs, like in the home. Perhaps they've struck a deal with the prosecution, and that's where all this is coming from, I'm assuming. Okay, Jody says, I feel like there's a strong case against her. Callie says, I don't understand why his income was not enough for her. It's insane. And hello, I've learned a lot. It's good to see you. It's just, there was a prenup, I'm hearing. So when the divorce took place, like whatever was left for her just doesn't seem like that would have been enough. I'm not sure the exact fine print on all that. But yeah, it seems like the motive that the state is trying to kind of lay out there and will kind of have the burden of proof for is money. That it's going to be, you know, financially motivated, that she's greedy, that whatever was going to be left to her after the divorce, because he was done with her, wasn't going to be enough for her, sadly. But good morning, Ashley. Okay, so now we'll listen to a former prosecutor's opinion on whether the case is strong or not.
Well, this is a shocking case for so many reasons, but this affidavit helps us understand more about what was going on in the history of this relationship. It is a circumstantial case, and so without eyewitnesses there or without a confession, it is anything but a slam dunk. There was a long history of this woman allegedly trying to poison her husband. In fact, him going so far as to telling people that if he were to die, they should suspect her. So there's these separate instances, one in Greece. There was a couple several other instances in which it seemed as though she had poisoned him or tried to poison him in those circumstances. So it's very strange to see that there is a profile that is starting to emerge here of a long trend, some sort of, I guess, deep rift between the two of them. I'm not sure what would have motivated this for such a long time, but he was looking for a divorce.
Defendant's alleged conduct, as supported by substantial evidence, is especially dangerous. Indeed, these circumstances constitute clear and convincing evidence that defendant would pose a substantial danger to the community if released on bail, a substantial danger that cannot be adequately managed by any combination of conditions of pretrial release that are available in Summit County. For these reasons, the court finds the circumstances of this case, as supported by substantial evidence, weigh soundly against any form of pretrial release. The state's motion for pretrial detention is granted. Defendant Kouri Richins shall continue to be detained without bail during the time she awaits trial or other resolution of the criminal charges against her.
Kouri Richins will remain in jail throughout her trial. During the court hearing, her sister-in-law called her desperate, greedy, and extremely manipulative. It's said Kouri did show emotion during the hearing as she cried when a detective testified saying authorities found her husband dead and cold. Kouri reportedly conducted extensive online research after the death of her husband. Some of these searches include what is considered non-natural manner of death and her own net worth. Kouri also searched multiple times about whether her family had donated to the Summit County Police Department. She viewed an article titled Signs of Being Under Federal Investigation and Delay in Claim Payments for Death Certificate with Pending Cause of Death. Her attorneys say the evidence against Richins is circumstantial because authorities have never seized the drugs from the home.
So it seems that that is one of the arguments that her defense is having, that, you know, it's all circumstantial and there's nothing linking their client back to this crime because they never confiscated anything from the scene that was the cause of this death. So what do you guys think about that there? Also, let me just skim through this article real quick, see if there's anything else we didn't see. And thank you for letting us know about the life insurance policies out on the children as well, Danielle K. That is, I didn't hear about that, but that does make you wonder and worry for sure. And hello, In Trees, Apple Bottom Jeans. Good to see you. So yeah, there's just like a lot of stuff that she was, you know, being held for, well, stuff that she had done previously, like borrowing large sums of his credit cards, opening them up, stealing money from him. In 2020, he discovered that Kouri had borrowed $250,000 using a fake power of attorney and forging his initials on the documents. Eric confronted his wife about that, and she admittedly, you know, told him, yes, that she did steal those funds. And she had also stolen, allegedly, at least $80,000 earmarked for Eric's federal taxes, as well as at least $54,000 for his state taxes, and may have taken more money for the purpose that's yet to be discovered. And this is all coming from the New York Post when they did their interview with the family attorney and all that. But yeah, the attorney just says there's no question that their marriage was on the rocks. We believe that Kouri took some steps to manipulate their marital assets because of what, and we also believe that she took his life because of that. The lawyer described Eric as a very generous man who donated his time to coach his kids' soccer and basketball and baseball games. He volunteered at Summit County Search and Rescue. He just wanted to be very much a part of their lives, which is why he was so active in extracurricular activities. What he liked to do was be a father, and that was his favorite thing. Yeah, so she allegedly threw that massive party at the brand new $2 million home just hours after she, you know, slipped him this poison. I just think it's also damning that she like admittedly said that she made the Moscow Mule and brought it to him, you know, so they find out that this was ingested. So it wasn't obviously intravenous, put into his bloodstream like that. Like it's just very damning for her. And yeah, it is circumstantial, but it seems strong. So let me just switch up to, I want to play some of the hearing. The best way to kind of deep dive in these cases is to just watch these court proceedings. And I was hoping that I could just do it with you guys live together so that I'm not just bored watching it, but it's more exciting to go through this and absorb it all with you guys. So let me play that and switch up my screen in 1 second. I just want to make sure. Prosecutors believe Kouri poisoned Eric in an attempt to get money from his life insurance policy the same day he told her he would not be buying the mansion and that he was cutting her out of his will. Authorities allege she tried to name herself the sole beneficiary on Eric's policy, but he had changed it back to his sister's name without telling his wife. Kouri later put the mansion back on the market, trying to more than double her money by flipping it for nearly $5 million. She also went on to pen the children's book, Are You With Me?, to help her boys deal with the loss of their dad. The widow is charged with first-degree aggravated murder and multiple counts of second-degree possession of controlled substance with intent to distribute, records show. So we'll be following this one. It's very disturbing, but I don't know. It's just, I was just like blown away, and some cases kind of grab a hold of you more than others. And I feel like this is going to be one to watch. And hopefully the family of Eric and all of them get the justice that they want. And I think they will. Even though it's circumstantial, everything just looks bad, which I guess is a huge part of circumstantial. But I don't know. It seems like chat is kind of feeling the same vibe, that the state does seem to have a strong case. Do you think that they still have a strong case, even though there was no illicit drugs confiscated at the scene? Like there was nothing that, say the baggie was found on Kouri's side of the bed or something, you know what I mean? Like we haven't heard anything like that. But the fact that, which is still circumstantial, but still, she admittedly makes a Moscow Mule and gives it to him and then leaves him. Whether it's for the night terror or not, I'm not sure anyone really believes. But the fact is, you gave him something to ingest. He ends up passing by something that he ingested. So it's just kind of like, what is the defense going to come up with? What will the jury consider as beyond a reasonable doubt type of thing, So let me switch up my screen.
Driscoll, can you please introduce yourself to the court and explain your relation to this case?
My name is Detective O'Driscoll. I've been with the Summit County Sheriff's Office for 7 years. I'm assigned to the Investigations Division. I was assigned to be the lead detective in this case in April of this year. This case is an active case and the investigation's ongoing.
Detective, what was the Sheriff's Office?
That's true, E.E. Caroline. The total lack of F packaging would suggest somebody other than Eric fed him the F stuff. And I think that will be a good little code word because unfortunately, YouTube doesn't really like us talking about these illicit substances. So I think that that's what they're going to go with. She left the room and was with the child. Whatever took place with Eric in that Moscow Mule or Eric in that bedroom could have been taking place while she was in the other room, right? I mean, I'm sure that that's what they'll go with. And yeah, the drug dealer who, I don't know if she's the middleman, CL, but either way, yeah, she connected them and got the substance for her and then flipped on her, it seems. So it's just this, she's not a very good, she hasn't done well with trying to cover things up, in my opinion. Yeah, it's so good when criminals are dumb. And that's the thing, when they're listing off everything she was searching. At one point she searched, which wasn't included in here, but there was something about some drug. I can't even pronounce it, so I won't even try. But she was like asking if it was the same as or if it was similar to heroin or something. And it's like a deleted search. Hello, you're Googling stuff related to an opioid. Like, yes, it wasn't the F stuff, but same classification in a way. So it's kind of like, so it's just supposed to be coincidental that you're Googling these opioids and then this happens to your husband, and all those were deleted.
First involvement in this case.
On March 4th, 2022, at 3:22 hours, Summit County Dispatch received a 911 call regarding an unresponsive male in the Francis area.
Have you listened to that 911 call?
Yes.
Who placed that call?
The defendant, Kouri Richins.
In addition to saying that someone was unresponsive, did Ms. Richins, the defendant, identify who was unresponsive and anything else about that person's condition?
Yes, she stated that it was her husband, Eric Richins, that was unresponsive, that he was cold to the touch and not breathing.
Did EMS and police respond to that address?
Yes.
Is that the family home?
Yes.
Was a portion of the police and EMS response captured on police body camera video?
Yes, it was.
Have you reviewed that video?
Yes, I have.
On that video, what time does EMS pronounce Eric Richins dead?
03:58 hours on March 4th.
What, if anything else, does EMS say about how long he had been dead?
One of the EMS personnel made the comment that he had been dead a while.
Did the state medical examiner's office conduct an autopsy of Mr. Richins?
Yes, they did.
Have you reviewed the medical examiner's autopsy report
Yes.
and the toxicology?
So I don't know if they're going to get into a time frame of when they think, but just for us to kind of write down notes. And hello, Sarah Adams. It's good to see you. She gave it to him at 9 p.m., leaves the room. By 3:31, first responders are called. So here we hear, or first responders are there or called. I'll have to check my notes. I think she called them at 3:31. But either way, they're saying that he had been dead for a while. So obviously his body temperature dropped. There's rumors she covered him up with a heated blanket. So it's like, in my mind, just knowing how strong and lethal this poison is, it seems like it probably happened instantly. I don't know. What are you guys thinking? So around 9 p.m.
Report that's part of that.
Yes.
What did the medical examiner identify as the cause of death?
Drug intoxication, with the specific drug being fentanyl.
I'm going to now ask you, detective, some questions about someone with the initial CL. Do you know who I'm talking about when I say CL?
Yes, I do.
Who is CL in relation to the defendant?
CL is an associate of the defendant. She cleaned houses for the defendant's business, as well as her personal home at times.
Does CL have a criminal drug history?
Yes.
Is she under supervision in a different county, a county other than Summit County?
Yes, she is.
And is that in relation to certain drug charges?
Yes.
Does the core program in which she's in monitor treatment and testing, et cetera?
Yes.
Do you know how CL is performing in that program?
Based on my interactions with CL, she is progressing through the stages of that program, and that her personal outlook on her recovery is optimistic.
Have you interviewed CL in connection with this case?
Yes.
Approximately how much time have you spent interviewing her?
Over the course of multiple interviews, several hours each, I would say upwards of 10 hours.
Was CL in custody when you interviewed her?
Yes, she was.
Was that interview captured on video and audio recording?
Yes.
What, if any, promises did you make regarding, or to CL regarding her cooperation with being interviewed?
CL was not made any specific promises, but at the outset of our interviews, we explained to her that her cooperation in our investigation would result in us working with the prosecutors that were responsible for the charges she was facing.
Did you express to CL the seriousness of this case as well as the charges she was facing?
Yes, we expressed to her the seriousness of the charges and the possible results of those charges. As well, we impressed upon her the importance or the value of her testimony in this case as it related to the charges that she was facing, and that her testimony or any information that she may have was more important to us.
Want to see how I took advantage of this unknown loophole to get the windows replaced?
Did you stress to CL that the information you were asking her about needed to be credible and verifiable?
Yes, we told her at the beginning of our interview that any information that she may have, we would need to corroborate in order for it to be of value to us.
Did CL cooperate with being interviewed?
Yes, she did.
Did CL know Eric Richins?
Yes, CL told us that during the time that she spent cleaning the Richins home, she got to know Eric, that she felt that he was a really good person, she liked him, and she was very saddened to hear that he passed away.
Did there come a time when investigators executed a search warrant on CL's home?
Yes.
In executing that warrant, did you make any observations consistent with CL's testimony that she felt bad about Eric Richins' death?
Yes. Inside the home, we identified a bedroom that belonged to CL. In the bedroom, there was a mirror above a desk. On the mirror were taped or affixed several inspirational quotes that seemed to relate to her recovery and her drug court program. Amongst all those inspirational quotes was a newspaper clipping of Eric Richins' obituary.
Did you get the impression that part of the reason CL cooperated is because she felt bad for Eric Richins?
Yes, in fact, she said so many times in our interviews.
Detective, I want to turn now to what, if anything, CL told you about the defendant requesting that CL purchase fentanyl for the defendant. What did CL tell you?
In our interviews, CL told us that in early 2022, the defendant reached out to her either by phone call or text message requesting that she procure fentanyl for what the defendant reported was an investor who had a back injury.
And upon the defendant asking CL to get fentanyl, what did CL do?
CL told us that she reached out to an acquaintance of hers, acquaintance one, and requested that she introduce her to somebody that could sell her fentanyl.
Did acquaintance one introduce CL to someone that could sell CL fentanyl?
Yes, CL said that acquaintance one provided her with a phone number of another acquaintance, acquaintance two, who was someone that she knew could sell CL fentanyl.
And did CL say that she ultimately contacted acquaintance two?
Yes, she did.
What, if anything, did CL say about purchasing fentanyl from acquaintance two?
CL told us that she contacted acquaintance two after receiving his phone number and asked to arrange to meet to purchase some fentanyl from him. She stated that sometime in February, she believed she met up with acquaintance two at a Maverick gas station in Draper and purchased from him 15 to 30 round green-blue pills, which she understood to be fentanyl.
Using phone records through the course of your interview with CL, were you ultimately able to narrow down on what that date was in February that CL purchased fentanyl from acquaintance two at the Maverick in Draper?
Yes, based on forensic evidence, we were able to determine that that date was February 11th, 2022.
What, if anything, did CL say about what she did with the fentanyl pills that she purchased from acquaintance two?
CL told us that after purchasing the pills from acquaintance two, she returned home to her house in Heber. She said that either later that night or the next day, the defendant met her in the driveway of that home and did a hand-to-hand exchange of pills for cash.
I'm going to turn now, Detective, to some questions regarding witnesses who corroborate CL's testimony, okay?
Okay.
You mentioned acquaintance number one. Have investigators interviewed acquaintance one?
Yes.
Have you reviewed body camera, audio, and video of that interview?
Yes.
Does acquaintance one corroborate CL's testimony?
Yes. She stated that CL contacted her in early 2022 and asked for someone that could sell her fentanyl. In the body cam, she also retrieves her cell phone and shows investigators the messages that corroborated that.
And what kind of messages were they?
They were messages between acquaintance one and CL on Facebook Messenger app. And
have you reviewed those messages?
Yes.
Is the first of those messages dated February 6, 2022 at 1:37 p.m.?
Yes.
Does it read, text me, I've got a question, won't do it on this?
Yes.
That's CL writing acquaintance one, asking acquaintance one to text CL because she didn't want to write over Facebook Messenger?
Correct.
Did acquaintance one say whether or not she ever, in response, contacted CL?
Yes, she said that she then either texted or called her subsequent to her request.
You testified that acquaintance two sold fentanyl pills to CL. at the Maverick in Draper? Have investigators interviewed acquaintance 2?
Yes.
Have you reviewed body camera audio and video of that interview?
Yes, I have.
Is acquaintance 2 able to corroborate CL's testimony?
Yes, acquaintance 2 was able to recall that he sold fentanyl pills to a friend of acquaintance 1's in early 2022.
Going to pause it for a second. And good morning, Johnny. It's good to see you. And hi, Roxanne. It's good to see you. And thank you for the Cash App that you sent me. That was very kind of you. I just wanted to thank you here again. So thank you so much. And yes, I seen the new case, Leo, and it's just horrific. That father with the 3 sons. That one's rough. Don't know if we'll get into it. We'll see. But Sarah said something I wanted to read. Oh yeah, thank God he put his money in the trust for the boys. I agree. That just was safe there, and she had no way to access that. So that's good. But yeah, do you guys think it's weird? So I put that drug that she Googled up on the screen. Do you think it's weird that she was Googling that, or her search about that afterwards? Do you find weird? Thanks for becoming a member, Sarah. It's good to have you on the team, and always in chat. Your comments and all that are always very insightful. So much like everyone else who watches me, I just really appreciate your guys' input, and it really gets my head thinking. And on that subject, I am still going over the Idaho 4 case. I had to take a step back a little bit. I want to kind of collect everything that we've been gathering with those filings from the defense. And I have a lot of really, smart moderators and subscribers, and they're just looking into things very deeply on the Idaho 4 case. And I'm trying to kind of look at things from a different perspective to kind of help my own research for the case. So I'm taking a little bit of time to kind of do that. And Koberger, I don't know if he's going to be in the hearing on the 27th, but there is another hearing this month for the Idaho 4 case. So it's always in my sight. I'm going to be following that one to the end, but this one is also going to be added to the channel's research. And if you guys aren't in my Facebook group, we cover so many more cases in the group in like a Facebook platform. I will link that in this chat. And I'll pin it also in the comments down below so that you guys can find it, those who watch on replay too.
At a Maverick gas station in Draper.
I'm going to turn our detective to some forensic data questions, and whether forensic data corroborates CL's narrative, okay?
Okay.
Have you reviewed carrier records of the defendant's phone?
Yes.
And I want to just clarify one thing. I'm talking right now about carrier records, different than cell data records. We'll have an expert testify about cell data records in a moment. I'm just going to ask you about the carrier records, okay?
Okay.
What, if anything, do the carrier records for the defendant's phone, or what, if anything, in the carrier records for defendant's phone corroborate CL's testimony?
The cell records from the defendant's phone show several phone calls back and forth between her and CL in early 2022.
Do they show any text messages back and forth between the defendant and CL?
Yes, several.
Have you reviewed those text messages?
We were only able to see the timestamps and who the sender and receiver was. We're not able to see the content of those messages because they appear to be deleted from both the defendant's phone and CL's phone.
Have you reviewed the call history and carrier records of CL's phone?
Yes.
Does CL's carrier records and call history corroborate CL's testimony?
Yes.
Is there a particular set of calls on February 11th, 2022 between 5:19 p.m. and 6:52 p.m. in CL's phone history?
Yes.
Did you question CL regarding those calls?
Yes. She said those calls were to acquaintance 2 and that they were to arrange the specific date and time to pick up fentanyl in Draper.
Turning now from CL's purchasing fentanyl for the defendant to the defendant's purported timeline on the night of Eric Richins' death, okay?
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that police interactions with the defendant were captured on video. Have you reviewed that video?
Yes, I have.
Did the defendant provide police with a written statement in the early morning of March 4th, 2022?
Yes, she did.
Have you reviewed that statement?
Yes.
What on the early morning of Eric Richins' death did the defendant report had happened that evening?
She stated that the last time that she saw Eric alive was between 9:30 and 9:45 p.m. She stated that before going to bed, they had a drink together to celebrate closing on a house for her business. She said that they got in bed between 9:30 and 9:45, and that shortly after getting into bed, one of the children had a nightmare, and that the defendant got out of bed and went to be with that child in their bedroom and slept in that bedroom until 3 a.m. or around 3 a.m. when she woke.
I just have to pause it. I know that we've heard this whole storyline numerous times, you know, the child was having a night terror, and it's just, you know, very coincidental of all nights that takes place on the night that this accident takes place. You know, it's like, well, not accident, but, you know, she's claiming that whatever took place, she didn't do. So alleged accident, according to Kouri. But it's just very convenient, right? You know, the one night that she hands her husband a Moscow Mule and then leaves him alone, the child has that night terror. It's just like, really? It's just way too convenient. And of course, that's still circumstantial. But at the same time, hopefully the jury will see like, oh, what do you know? Of all nights, the child has that terror that night. And good morning, Alex Erickson. It's good to see you.
She stated she returned to her own bedroom, got into bed, and felt that Eric was cold to the touch. She stated that she turned the light on, saw that he wasn't breathing and that he didn't look normal, and that she then called 911.
Hi, Nicole.
Did the defendant say whether anyone else was in their home other than the defendant, her husband, Eric Richins, and their 3 young children?
No, she stated no one else was in the home.
Turning now to the defendant's statements regarding whether she performed CPR on her husband, okay? Did the defendant tell investigators when they arrived at her home shortly after she called 911 whether or not she performed CPR on Eric?
And just the fact that, you know, the officers asked her, was there anyone else in the home? And Kouri had told the officers no. And it's like, oops, sorry. Mickey Mouse, hang on. Sorry, Mickey Mouse toy next to me. But it just reminds me of this, like, because in our Facebook group, we share some memes, sometimes some true crime related memes. And it just reminded me of like this one. It was like when someone stages a murder to look like a home invasion, but they don't create any signs of forced entry. And then it was like pathetic and showed like a cat's face. And it just kind of reminds me sort of this situation, you know, like she hands him this drink. Medical examiner comes out and says the way that this poison got into this gentleman's body was because he ingested it. She admits to it. And then like that she, you know, had made the drink and gave it to him at 9 p.m. And then now she's being asked by officers, you know, was there anyone in the home? And it's at the point where it's like, before she called first responders, you know, she could have gone downstairs and like unlocked the back door, made it seem like, I didn't see anyone in the home, but our back door was unlocked now that you mention it, or I went downstairs and it, you know, it was wide open or something like that. It's just like, she's just so dense, it seems. Yeah, Sarah, she isn't even drinking anything, right? She didn't have her own drink. Who's going to go through the effort of making a drink at home and celebrate the closing on a house that she had done and not have some herself? Or, you know, it's just like, she's just very like, duh, like people deleting stuff and not realizing that like those searches can be brought up again. Like it's never deleted completely. And hello, Marshall Dove. Good to see you.
Eric Richins.
Yes, she reported that she did.
I'm going to refer to someone now as
And another example here, you know, she had said that she performed CPR. And they're claiming like, no, there was no signs of CPR, much like the Lori Vallow case with her husband, Charles, when he was shot and killed by Alex, her brother. You know, Alex told everyone that he had performed CPR. By the time they do the autopsy on Charles and they check him, there was no sign of that as well. So it's these little things that these criminals do that it's just like, don't you know that by now, year 2023, all this can be determined.
Defendant's best friend. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
What, if anything, did the defendant tell her best friend regarding whether she performed CPR on Eric Richins?
Investigators found text messages between the defendant and her best friend that was her explanation to her friend that she conducted CPR on Eric prior to EMS arrival.
And do those text messages read, "I pumped so damn hard, so hard, screaming at him to come back to life"?
Yes.
True or false? It is possible to earn a monthly yield.
You testified earlier, Detective, that EMS responded. Have you interviewed the first EMS responder?
Yes, I have.
What observations did that EMS responder make?
They told me that when they arrived, they began CPR compressions on Eric, and that upon beginning those compressions, Eric began to foam at the mouth. He stated that that observation indicated that CPR was not likely conducted before he arrived.
Detective, as part of your investigation, did you look into whether Eric Richins used illicit drugs?
Yes.
What did you determine?
Based on the interviews that we conducted with those who knew Eric well, all stated that he did not use illicit drugs other than consuming THC gummies on occasion.
Do those that you spoke to include Eric's two best friends that he's known since high school?
Yes, both made the same statement that they never knew Eric to use any illicit substances other than the THC gummies.
When I reference a hunting...
And that's the other thing too, is he has absolutely no history with anything illicit like that. So another thing that's just like a red flag, just stands out like a sore thumb in all this. It's not like he was in recovery or anything like that, you know? Yeah, I agree, Sarah. I didn't see any wet tears at all, as she's quote unquote crying, but I don't know what you guys are thinking. And yes, Sarah, I'm always on Facebook, like all day, on and off in the group, sharing stuff. You'll see. I post a lot in there about other cases and stuff. So it's just sometimes easier to talk in a Facebook format than cover it here on the channel. I also send updates when I go live in Facebook because sometimes people don't get notified here on YouTube. I don't know if there's like a glitch or whatever, but that way, if you're in the group and I go live, you'll get a notification there as well. Thank you, Marshall Dove. I really appreciate that super sticker. I love having you here in chat, and it makes me so happy when I see people who have been here on my channel. I mean, it's been a few years now, so I really appreciate it.
Guide in Mexico by the initials TR. Do you know who I'm referring to?
Yes.
Did you speak to this hunting guide?
Other Summit County detectives did, yes.
And what did this hunting guide, if anything, say about Eric Richins using illicit drugs while hunting in Mexico?
The guide told detectives that several of their clients, when they come to Mexico, will seek out someone that can put them in contact with illicit substances while they're down there for their hunt. He stated that Eric Richins was not one of these, that Eric was solely focused on the hunt.
Has the defendant made any statements regarding whether her husband, Eric Richins, used illicit drugs other than THC?
Yes, in several statements made by the defendant throughout the investigation, there have been at least 10 times that she has said that Eric does not use illicit substances and did not use illicit substances.
And just to be clear, other than THC?
Other than the THC gummies, correct.
On the night Eric Richins died, did investigators searched the Richins' home.
Yes.
Did they find any illicit drugs?
No.
Did they find any paraphernalia or packaging or other evidence of illicit drugs?
No.
Did they find fentanyl anywhere in the home?
Only that which was in Eric's body.
We're going to now shift, Detective, from the night of Eric's death to a second drug buy initiated before his death and concluded after his death, okay?
Okay.
What, if anything, did CL tell you about the defendant approaching CL a second time for fentanyl?
CL told us that approximately a week after delivering the first load of fentanyl, the defendant reached out to her again by text or call and said that she wanted some more fentanyl that was stronger than the previous batch.
And in response, what, if anything, did CL do?
CL told us that she again reached out to acquaintance 1 because she had lost the phone number for acquaintance 2, and again requested from acquaintance 1 that she provide her with the phone number for acquaintance 2. She also made other statements in Facebook messages regarding that request.
So Marshall Dove asked, which is, a lot of people were wondering and asking, and we kind of got a little bit of clarification in the first 12 minutes of the stream when the family lawyer was speaking on, I think, News Nation or one of the news stations. But I've clipped it where the lawyer is basically saying, like, he was making moves behind the scenes. And I think that the state is going to show, a paper trail of him. Maybe there's an email between him and a lawyer. Maybe there's a phone call between him and a lawyer, a divorce lawyer or something. But pretty much his lawyer is Richins' family lawyer is coming out saying that he was indeed making steps to get divorced. He had felt that, she'd tried to do this and said, if something happens to me, it's going to be Kouri. So there were steps that he was doing behind the scenes to kind of get away and maybe even take full custody. That's just what the lawyer has come out saying. He's come out to say that that's why he thinks this took place, is that she was getting wise to the fact that that's the plans that he was making. And, why he was still living under the same roof as her and like taking, drinks and food like that. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of us are kind of scratching our head like, but wait a minute, how do you say to people, I think she's poisoned me more than once? Because remember, there's that Greece incident, the Valentine's Day. But at the same time, the lawyer has also come out saying that Eric blindly was in love with her. Maybe there's an aspect of denial. Maybe, I don't know. It's very hard to understand. Yeah, that's the thing, is why would he anything from her? I don't know. It's very weird. Yeah, he said that he was staying with her for the boys. So I don't know if he was like scared for them, but I think that the lawyer kind of insinuated that like there were going to be steps where he was going to push to get custody and divorce. Yeah, all the kids had multiple life insurance policies on them. Yeah, and she, come to find out, was like millions in debt. I have a screenshot of her and her lawyer the moment they realize the judge is denying bail. Their faces are like thunder. I can't believe she expected to go out on bond. Yeah, the family needs to clarify all this on the stand. Yeah, people just want to know, like, why did he stay? And that the defense is going to poke holes into that aspect. Eric's actions. Oh, well, clearly he couldn't have been too concerned about his wife because he was still living with her. And of course, it sounds like victim shaming as I'm saying it. It's awful. But sadly, their job is to do anything they can. And they will do anything that they can in court to do it. So what kind of holes will they poke as far as the fact that like he still stayed with her, even though claiming that he had been poisoned multiple times? And remember those statements of him saying that he was poisoned in the past, and if something happens to me, it's going to be Kouri, or I think she's trying to poison me. Although like I believe it, from like the jury aspect, what if they just see it, or the judge aspect, they just see it as like hearsay and there's nothing concrete unless there's a text message or something like that.
I don't know. And a lot of people, Sarah, have mentioned that her lawyer is a good lawyer. I didn't look into it, but I believe your guys' research on it. Apparently, it's a high-priced lawyer. I heard the other day, too, that it says Kouri Richins has filed a civil lawsuit against her husband's estate, claiming she deserves money outlined in their prenup agreement. So that's interesting. Clearly, and that's the thing. She's claiming that she's innocent. So why wouldn't she kind of fight to get, in her mind, this is what she's thinking in her defense probably, why wouldn't she fight to get her assets from this death that took place? If she's entitled, blah, 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 this is what I'm saying that she's probably thinking, and she's innocent, then that's why she's filing the civil lawsuit. Very strange. Yeah, they may even that might not even come in, Midwest Mima says, which is true because it is hearsay. So I'm curious if there is some way of showing that there's an email or a text message that Eric had with someone kind of laying out this grease poisoning incident and that Valentine's Day one, or claiming, if something happens to me, it's Kouri type of thing. Like, where exactly is all that going to be coming from when the state kind of presents it?
In your interview, or detective's interview rather, with acquaintance one, did she corroborate that indeed CL reached back out to her asking for acquaintance two's phone number?
Yes, in the same Facebook Messenger, it showed the two different contacts on the two different dates.
And does the second Facebook message, was it dated February 25th, 2022 at 9:40 p.m.?
Yes.
And does it read, I need those again, but more, and I don't got a ride, I lost your friend's number?
Correct.
Did CL and acquaintance one both say that acquaintance one provided CL with acquaintance two's phone number again?
Yes.
What then, if anything, did CL do with acquaintance two's phone number the second time?
CL told us that she again contacted acquaintance 2 and arranged again to meet up at the same Maverick gas station in Draper to purchase again 15 to 30, this time blue round pills that she understood to be fentanyl.
That's true too. Patricia Burns says, I wouldn't leave if my kids were still there. Yeah, that could very well be why he was kind of sticking around, making moves slowly behind the scenes, according to the attorney. And that could be why, he didn't just up and leave. Does it explain why he's openly taking drinks and stuff from her? I mean, I'm sure they're going to point that out too. Like, oh, okay, but why would, if he had thought that she was going to poison him, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's just, they'll pull out any trick that they can, which is their job. Okay, Caroline says, don't know whether it's a fact. Saw on another channel that the Valentine's poisoning was confirmed by text with a friend. Okay, I'll look into that too. I'm sure that can be easily looked at. Actually, while I'm playing this, I'll see if something pops up. But that would be interesting because to have some sort of paper trail would be very helpful.
On the way to the Draper and Maverick, the second time, she purchased 15, I'm sorry, did you say 15 to 30?
Yes, 15 to 30 pills.
Which she believed to be fentanyl. Did she make any stops along the way?
Yes, CL told us that the second time that she procured fentanyl for the defendant, she did not have a vehicle to drive on that date. She said that she reached out to a friend, acquaintance 3, and asked that he give her a ride to go purchase fentanyl. She said that he did pick her up, that they traveled from Heber City to the defendant's home in Francis, where, according to CL, the defendant had told her there was a check waiting under the mat at the defendant's home. She said that she checked under the mat and didn't find a check, and so she knocked on the defendant's door, and the defendant came to the door and wrote her a check from her business, from the defendant's business, for $1,300 for the purchase of the fentanyl. CL told us that afterwards they drove to the America First Credit Union in Heber City, where CL banks, and cashed the check
and deposited $300 of it into her account at America First Credit Union. She said that after stopping at the bank and getting the cash, they then drove to the Maverick gas station in Draper and purchased the pills from acquaintance 2.
Did investigators execute a warrant at the America First Credit Union in Heber?
Yes, and that warrant returned a copy of the check written from the defendant's business account in the name of CL and a receipt that shows that it was cashed and that $300 were deposited into CL's account.
And then CL ultimately, being driven by acquaintance 3, went to the Maverick in Draper and purchased fentanyl a second time from acquaintance 2.
Correct.
Okay, so to follow up the paper trail of the Valentine's Day poisoning, it says a Valentine's Day meal turned into a nightmare when Eric Richins broke out in hives and had difficulty breathing. After eating a sandwich his wife made for him, the document stated. Prosecutors alleged in the document that Richins made her husband a sandwich and placed it on the seat in his truck with a love note. But after eating it, her husband became ill and needed to use their son's EpiPen. The document stated that Eric Richins believed he had been poisoned, and it says in quotes, told a friend that he thought his wife was trying to poison him. So this article is NBC. So it just says that in court documents, and then it quotes told a friend. So there must be some sort of paper trail of at least the Valentine's Day one.
Correct.
What, if anything, does acquaintance 2 say that corroborates CL's testimony?
Acquaintance 2 in his interview stated that he remembered selling fentanyl to a friend of acquaintance 1's on 2 separate occasions at the same Maverick gas station in Draper. He also said that he remembered the second time that he sold her the pills that CL was with another person who matched the age and gender of acquaintance 3.
Have you interviewed acquaintance 3?
Yes.
What, if anything, does acquaintance 3 say to corroborate CL's testimony?
Acquaintance 3 corroborated all the same details that CL told us about that day, and in fact showed us text messages on his phone that also corroborated that story.
Detective, I'm going to ask you now some questions about what are commonly known as bug-out bags, okay?
Okay.
Did investigators execute several search warrants on the defendant's home or the family home?
Yes.
Did those warrants identify what are commonly known as bug-out bags?
Yes. There were several duffel bags stored in the garage, along with backpack-sized day packs, and each was identical and labeled for a different member of the Richins family. Those backpacks were seized subject to a warrant and were inventoried and photographed. Inside the bags, detectives located several items that would be useful in an emergency situation. But the most interesting were documents needed for travel for each member of the family. Each bag contained a photocopy of a state-issued ID in the children's case, along with passports for Eric and the defendant.
For some, and of course, this is her bond hearing. So the fact that he's laying out that he had seen maybe possible evidence in his opinion that she had stuff packed and was going to make a run for it. Because remember, this is all about her getting out on bond before her trial. So here he's pretty much saying like, yeah, I discovered suitcases, etc., and passports and all that. And she just, this part of the bond hearing, I noticed for sure that she was just very much in disagreement, shaking her head no, like even whispering stuff to her lawyer at this part. Like, I think up until this point, I think she thought that she could get out on bond. And then here she's just pissed that it's like not going her way pretty much.
As well as global entry travel cards for both Eric and the defendant.
Did those bags also contain clothing, toiletries, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Do detectives know when those bags were packed?
No.
And there was a bag for Eric as well, is that right?
Correct.
I have no further questions for you. Mr. Lazaro on mine. Thank you.
Detective, it's O'Driscoll, right?
Correct.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to follow a little bit the same timeline just so we kind of keep things together. You said you reviewed the body cam that was provided on the night that Eric passed away, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that Kouri made a statement that night to police, a written statement.
Correct.
Okay. And she told them that she had made a drink, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they were aware of that. Was there anything in that body cam or investigation that talks about them looking for a glass that a drink had been made in?
No.
But you said that they searched for illicit drugs, correct?
I don't know if they searched for illicit drugs, but they searched the home.
Okay, so they searched the home that night knowing that he had a drink right before he went to bed and made no note that they had recovered glasses, looked for glasses, anything along those lines, correct?
Not to my understanding.
You also testified that when you interviewed CL, she was working on both a personal and I'm going to say professional capacity for Kouri, correct?
Correct.
And she was cleaning houses, that she was both cleaning Kouri's personal home and then she would clean homes that were investment properties, correct?
CL told us that she cleaned both homes for Ms. Richins' business, as well as at another time frame, she cleaned their personal home.
Okay.
So not necessarily at the same time.
But at the time, she was cleaning homes for the business, correct?
Which time are you referring to?
On or about the time leading up to or during your investigation, end of the year, end of 2021, beginning of 2022?
At that time, from my understanding of what CL told us, she was cleaning only investment properties belonging to the Richins Realty Company.
And she was getting compensated for that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so the check that you issued the search warrant on for the bank, that was written from Kouri's business account, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it could very well be that Kouri was paying her for cleaning houses, correct?
I don't want to speculate, but
It could be,
it's
despite
possible.
what CL said, correct? Okay.
This revolutionary new device can remove up to 10 times.
You also testified that CL was progressing through her drug court program and you were optimistic about how she would do in it, correct?
No, I testified that she was optimistic about her own personal
Sorry if I
recovery.
misstate that. How long were you investigating CL? When did you begin investigating CL?
I don't know an exact date, but the beginning of 2023.
And were you monitoring what she was doing at that time?
Yes.
Because you knew she had a boyfriend or this guy in Vegas, some other details about her life, correct?
Initially, at the outset of investigating CL, no, we didn't know all those details.
But over the course of your investigation, you learned them.
Correct.
Did you have CL's phone, correct?
Summit County Sheriff's Office evidence text too.
So I can already get the vibe that the defense is going to poke holes in CL on every which way. And I just wanted to pause and read Caroline's comment. I'd like to know if Kouri actually was successful at real estate sales, or if she was just using that as a cover for having large chunks of income, like when she diverted IRS payments to herself. Yeah, I'm curious. Now I've heard, and this is coming from the family attorney, that, again, she was, come to find out she was millions in debt, was doing all these schemes and scams, and wasn't good or successful. But again, we don't know exactly all the details because very little has been kind of laid out to us as far as evidence and what paper trail and stuff, besides those emails between her and the detective, which we went through earlier in the stream if you guys didn't see it. But Mel Max had something, that book stuff too. What book stuff? Sorry, I went over my head. And hello, Lisa. It's good to see you. Good morning. Lambs Bond, thank you so much. Yeah, it's all just very convenient how it all happened that night, right? And I'm sure it was just red flag. Honestly, when CDT went through the transcript of the body cam,
you know, she's reading through it and you can just kind of see the scene in your head. Obviously, I don't know what the inside of their house looks like and all that, but obviously it was a chaotic scene, but I'm sure that the first responding officers were already kind of suspicious. You know, they walk into this very nice house in this nice neighborhood. At one point they ask, I believe, her like his education level, and she says bachelor degree, and then like what he does for a living, and she's telling them like he owns a stone masonry company and all that. Like the officers were probably just like red flags were going off the entire time. She had flipped several homes already, but apparently was still in millions in debt. I don't know. All that, again, will be laid out very soon. Oh, yeah, duh. Melmac, sorry. I need more coffee, I think. Yeah, the grief book, the children's book, using the kids again. Right. And in her interview, she straight up says the kids and I wrote this to kind of express what we were going through on grief. Like, how could a child within the first year of losing their father, like sit down with you and express like grief? How would they even know how to process it themselves, let alone like help you write this book? Like, it was just very much like you just knew she was lying. And the fact that, you know, she had set up that interview with those with that news place herself. Like, it wasn't like they reached out to her and was like, hey, we just discovered your book and we'd love that, blah blah blah, like come on the show. Like, she set it all up. She's just painted the narrative very much from the very start, from the body cam transcript, in my opinion, just right off the bat.
You reviewed it.
Yes.
Okay. And you testified about text messages between CL and the defendant on or about this time period you're looking at in February, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you review any other information prior to that time about contact that CL and the defendant had had?
I'm unsure.
Did you even
but
look?
It's possible that we looked into communications in this investigation. Initial stages, we looked into communications with everybody that the defendant had been communicating with.
Okay. But you don't recall, or you didn't look for a pattern of communication between CL and the defendant, is that correct? You were focused on February?
I guess that depends on what stages of the investigation you're talking about.
I'm talking about any of them. Did you ever look and see if CL and the defendant texted each other about anything on a regular basis?
Yes.
Okay. And how far back did those go?
I'm not sure on exact dates again, but into 2021.
Okay. So for a period of time, because CL is working for the defendant, there's communication, correct?
Correct.
And nowhere in the communication between CL and defendant are there any text messages asking for drugs, correct?
We didn't find any, but there were also gaps in timeframes in the phones when we looked at them.
Now, I want to also talk about, you said you didn't make any promises to CL, is that correct?
Jesse, thank you for that. She said in the state's bench brief, the state literally says they are using hearsay, testimony, and unauthenticated documents to show their substantiated evidence. It's publicly filed. Interesting. And would all this hearsay and all that be kind of like allowed in these kind of hearings? You know, obviously before they get to trial, sometimes other things are kind of allowed more so, or am I off the mark there? Let me know. Also, Jesse, I had a question unrelated to this case, but Idaho 4, I was curious, have you seen that it seems to be taking the state a little bit of a delay giving over some of the discovery and evidence that they have against BK? I'm curious.
Correct. No specific promises.
Okay. You did, however, tell her, let me back up. When was the first interview you had with CL?
I believe it was April 28th or 26th. I believe it was the 26th.
Did you have any contact with her prior to that?
No,
Did anybody from law enforcement have contact with her prior to that?
not from our office.
You don't know if anyone else talked to her?
I don't.
Okay. Now, part of this came out of a raid or something along the lines that was coordinated with at least the ATF and some other agencies, correct?
CL's home was subject to a search warrant based on information that we had gathered during our investigation into CL.
And that search warrant would essentially contradict that she was doing well in what she was supposed to be doing in drug court, correct? She was buying drugs, wasn't she?
We didn't know that. We knew that she was associating with people that we knew had active warrants for drug charges.
Okay. And that would be a violation of drug court conditions, correct?
From my understanding, yes, but I don't know the details of that.
Okay. And as part of that search warrant, were individuals arrested?
CL was arrested, yes.
There were other individuals who were arrested too, correct?
I'm not recalling other individuals that were arrested on the date that the warrant was served.
Okay. Were any drugs recovered at the home?
Yes.
Okay. And you also recovered a firearm from CL's bedroom, correct?
Correct.
And that would be a violation of her drug court conditions, correct?
Correct.
Now, in this first interview in April, you begin the interview. Find the right notes. By explaining to CL essentially how dire of a situation she's in, correct?
I don't have the interview memorized, but I know we talked about that, yes.
Okay, well, you told her that she was on probation to drug court for 4 first-degree felonies, correct?
Correct.
Okay, a violation of that is a potential prison sentence, correct?
It would depend on the prosecutor, but that's potentially true.
Okay, a first-degree felony carries a possible penalty of life in prison, correct?
I don't know. I would have to reference the code.
So you told her she was facing problems with that, correct? That this would be a violation. So she'd be on the hook for 4 first-degree felonies.
Potentially, yes.
Okay. And you also told her that having the firearm could potentially be a new crime, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you also told her that the U.S. Attorney's Office was essentially on board with screening drug distribution charges, correct? I'm happy to play it if you don't remember.
I don't remember specifically.
Do you remember talking to her about potential federal charges?
Yes.
Okay. So she was aware, not only was she facing multiple first-degree felony prison sentences, she was also potentially facing federal charges, correct?
Correct.
And during that initial interview, she tells you that she didn't buy fentanyl, correct?
I don't know if she made that specific statement, but she talked about not knowing anything about fentanyl.
Okay. And that interview lasted about an hour and 19 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that interview ends, well, with you telling her, well, several times you tell her to think through all of this and let you know if she wants to help, correct?
Yes, I gave her the opportunity to tell us up front whether she was willing to cooperate or if we should just not bother interviewing her anymore.
Okay. But this is after you essentially tell her that she has the potential of doing a considerable amount of state and federal prison time, potentially.
Yes, this is a common tactic in law enforcement to be able to leverage charges for information.
Okay. In fact, you did in this case leverage charges for information because you told her that you didn't care about first-degree felonies or federal charges. What you cared about was information about Kouri getting drugs, correct?
I told her that I was interested in the information that she may know about this case.
Okay. But you told her also that Eric died of a fentanyl overdose, correct?
Correct.
And you told her that you thought that Kouri gave him the drugs, correct?
I did not specifically say that.
You alluded to the fact that you needed information about Kouri getting fentanyl because that's how Eric died, correct?
I don't know if I made that specific statement, but the information that we tried to convey to CL was that we wanted to know the information that she may have regarding Eric's death.
And you didn't care about any additional charges. All you cared about was that information, correct?
As I said previously, we expressed to her that the information that she may have was more valuable to us than seeking charges against her.
All right. And then you interview her 2 more times, is that right?
No, there were, I believe, 3 more after our first one.
Okay. Were all of those audio and video recorded?
Yes.
And those were turned over to the state in this case, correct? The state being the prosecutor's office. Okay. Now, forgive me because with all these interviews, I'm not sure which one comes from which. You, in subsequent interviews, tell CL that she needs to give good enough details that will ensure that Kouri gets convicted of murder, correct?
I don't know if I made that specific statement, but I did express to her that the information that she gave us needed to be specific enough that we could corroborate it and that it could be presented to a courtroom.
Okay. And that she was, quote, screwed at this point for a minute or a few years if there's not cooperation, correct?
No, I never made such statement.
Okay. Did you ever tell her this was her get out of jail free card?
No, I did not.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Now, at some point, CL tells you that in one of the interviews that Kouri contacted her between December and February to obtain prescription pills for an investor, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And she doesn't specifically state fentanyl at that point, correct?
Are you referring to CL?
I'm referring to CL.
I don't remember, but I don't believe so.
And in fact, I'm guessing it's something where around the second or third interview, CL says that those first pills, well, never says those first pills are fentanyl, correct? It never says that Kouri asked for fentanyl, correct?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase the question?
Sorry. In those first, in the first transaction, so initially CL tells you that there were 3 transactions prior to Eric's death, correct?
Yes, and what I have to say here is that
Well, that was a yes or no question.
but none of the information that we got from CL was perfectly chronological. We had to piece it together over multiple interviews to come to the conclusion we came to.
Because you told her you needed something more specific to ensure that Kouri got convicted, right?
No, we told her that we needed more details on what she was talking about and specific dates and times.
But in the first one, she says there's 3 transactions prior to Eric's death, correct?
At some point in our interviews, she told us there were 3 total transactions.
And she says that Kouri was only looking for prescription pills or hydrocodone pills, to be specific, correct?
CL referred to them as Roxys.
Okay. What do you know Roxys to be?
They can be different things in the drug world. They can either be counterfeit pills that are meant to look like a prescription pill, or they can.
Exactly, Caroline. She said, no matter how much they try to discredit CL, there are texts. So, yeah, hard to kind of explain the text messages.
Can be actual prescription pills, but generally they're known to be opiate-based drugs, whether illicit or pharmaceutical.
Okay, so something along the lines of hydrocodone or Oxycontin or something along those lines, correct?
It could be, yes.
Okay. And she specifically says that she was looking for $900 worth of fentanyl pills, correct?
I don't know if initially, but she did make the statement of $900 at one point in one of our interviews.
Okay. And she says that Kouri told her to leave the pills at an outdoor fire pit at the Midway house where there was cash, correct?
I don't know if she made that exact statement, but yes, she told us that at some point in part of the exchange that she was instructed to leave pills in an outdoor fire pit in a house in Midway.
And in fact, you sat there with her in this interview and did house searches, correct? Trying to figure out which house this was.
Yes.
Okay. Because she couldn't really tell you which house it was, correct?
She couldn't give us an address, but she was confident that she could find it if she could drive there.
Okay.
See how much they're going after the credibility of CL. And yeah, Jesse, I'm sure the defense will lay that out. Like she could have purchased the pills because there's rumors of her having her own addiction issues possibly, and still not have committed the murders, right? And this is all stuff that the jury will have to take in. And, 12 people, if it gets to the trial, this could end in a plea deal, probably, or maybe.
Okay. And did you take her for a drive there?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever do any follow-up investigation on whether or not that house ever sold?
Yes.
And you know that house sold sometime in January of 2022, correct?
From what I understand, yes.
So Ms. Richins no longer owned that home or occupied that home or had access to that home in February, correct?
I don't know.
Well, the house was owned by somebody else, right?
Again, I don't know.
Well, you said it closed in January of 2022.
From the information that I was told from other people, other investigators that had looked into that, I was told that Ms. Richins owned the house at some point and that it sold at some point. I don't know dates exactly.
Okay, don't you think that date would be important if CL's telling you that she had access to the home and was there in February?
Lisa asked, did they find texts on Kouri's phone and on CL? I believe that they've recovered deleted texts, and text messages have been, I believe, yeah, they do have text messages because there's like directions of where they wanted the drop off to be and all that. And then I'm not sure what text messages Kouri deleted off her phone, but they were able to recover them. And some of those text messages that she was exchanging was in the time frame that Kouri has told law enforcement her phone was plugged in the master bedroom and not on her. So there's recovered text messages. I'm assuming CL has presented text messages. And then there's text messages being exchanged during a time period that, she's claimed that she wasn't in access of her phone at the time. CL is the connection, I guess, old friend of Kouri that got her the poison, we'll call it. She has come forward and flipped on Kouri and given the prosecution a bunch of information. So she's the middle person because it seems that she got the drugs from somebody else and gave it to Kouri. But yeah, she's pretty much, people have called her the dealer itself. She, I guess, is the middle person of it and sold it to her. And then what else? She'll probably be a witness in the case, which is why her name has been kind of protected.
Possibly.
That might be a good fact to know. Okay. CL then, those subsequent interviews, correct?
Yes, we had multiple interviews with her.
Okay. And after being told that she needs to be more specific, as your words are, correct? She now says that it was specifically fentanyl that Kouri asked for, correct?
Correct.
And that she didn't actually take the pills to that house in Midway. It was a hand-to-hand transaction, correct?
Like I said, she went back and forth on her memory on which instances referred to which transactions. And ultimately, she told us that she was sure that the first transaction of fentanyl was a hand-to-hand transaction in her driveway.
Okay. And was what's been referred to as acquaintance 3, was that in regard to that transaction?
No.
was the second transaction.
Were you ever to corroborate, was anyone with her that could corroborate that she saw CL hand Kouri drugs?
Not that I know of.
And then she states that now there was a third transaction that occurred after Eric's death, correct?
She didn't make the statement that it was after Eric's death, but she told us there were 3 total transactions.
So the information contained in the state's amended information, you don't know where that came from?
Which information are you
That
referring
she purchased drugs after Eric's death?
to? Yes, I do know where it came from.
Okay. And you're saying CL did not sell drugs to Kouri after Eric's death?
CL could not remember specific dates and did not make mention that the transaction happened after Eric's death. But when presented with digital evidence from other witnesses, she confirmed that that was most likely correct.
Okay. So she just agreed with your scenario of events, correct?
No, in fact, several times during our interview, she told us that as we presented her more information, it helped her remember more.
So as you're telling her to be more specific, you're providing her with information that you're gaining in the case, and she's saying, now I remember. Accurate?
Yes.
All right. You also testified that you interviewed 2 of Eric's best friends, right?
Yes.
And during one of those interviews, actually, I'm going to go back to CL for just a second. On this transaction that you allege that this check was used for, or the state alleges this check was used for, you testified that she picked up the check that was written on Kouri's business account and cashed it, right?
Correct.
And drove to the Maverick and purchased fentanyl.
She didn't drive, but she was.
Someone drove her, okay? And the person with her corroborates that.
Correct.
And that third witness never saw CL give those drugs to Kouri, correct? Acquaintance 3 never saw that.
Acquaintance 3 didn't tell us that he ever saw that, no.
In fact, there's no independent witness to corroborate that CL gave Ms. Kouri those drugs, correct?
No eyewitnesses that we have identified, but the investigation is ongoing.
And CL is currently out of custody, right?
Depends on your definition of custody, but she's not incarcerated, no.
She's not incarcerated. She's on, I think, ankle monitor and not to leave the county, right?
Correct.
But following your interviews with her, she was released from jail.
Not immediately, no. She worked with the prosecutor in the other county where her drug court is and came to a resolution as to those charges against her. And part of that was being released on ankle monitor.
Okay, so in exchange for the testimony, or not testimony, in exchange for the information that she provided to you, and a deal was worked out where she was placed, essentially released from jail on the order to show cause, correct?
I don't know the specifics of what went on between the prosecutor and CL.
Okay.
But subsequent to our interviews, we reached out to the prosecutor's office and let them know that she was being cooperative. After that, I was not involved in any decisions regarding her release.
Okay, because that's up to the judge and whatnot. But you did communicate that to prosecutors?
Yes.
That she gave you the information you needed?
That she was being cooperative with our investigation, yes.
All right, I want to turn now to your interview, and I'm going to use initials. Are you okay with that? Okay. You had an interview with one of Eric's friends. His initials are JS. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. That interview occurred about April 20th. Is that correct?
That seems right. I don't know a specific date, but
Okay. And during that interview, he discussed, or you discussed with him, that he and another individual were essentially Eric's best friends, correct?
So Sarah, my apologies.
Yes.
April 20th of which year?
Oh, 2023. I apologize.
Thank you.
At any point during that interview, did JS mention that Eric had said that at any point during he and Kouri's marriage, he was concerned that Kouri was attempting to poison him.
I don't recall, but I don't think so.
In fact, you present him essentially 3 scenarios of what could have happened to Eric, correct? That he potentially did it to himself knowingly, that someone else did it to him, or that it was accidental, right? And you specifically ask him if he thinks Kouri would have done it, and he says, no, in my gut, I don't believe so, correct?
I don't know if that was a direct quote, but yes, he said that he didn't believe that she would have done it.
And he also states during that interview that at the time of his death, Eric and Kouri's marriage was in a really good place.
Yes.
Correct? Now, he also details or talks about a falling out that he and Eric had over the course of their friendship, correct?
Yes, that sounds familiar.
And that Eric and his other friend that he refers to in this interview actually had a falling out right before Eric passed away, correct?
Yes.
You also talk about, or he talks about the fact that, you know, all 3 of them at different times had marital problems that they had helped each other through, correct?
JS told me that he and Eric and their other friend would confide in each other about their marriages and would share information, and that was how he had the insight that he had into Eric's life.
He also talks about that Eric changed or created these trust documents, correct?
Correct.
And his understanding, based on what he said that Eric told him, was because Eric was pissed or upset about a relationship that Kouri had, correct? Or he thought she had.
I don't remember the specifics of that part.
And they are alluding to the affair that's been rumored to have been going on throughout their marriage the whole time on Kouri's part. So here she stated at first that it was like a fact. And then she said, well, what he thought was going on. So let me just rewind it just to listen to this again, because I listened to it and I was like, there's still no positive confirmation of, you know, we haven't seen the real proof of any affair going on, but it seems like we can pretty much, I don't know. I think it's going to be factual at this point on Kouri's part.
Or he thought she. He also talks about that Eric changed or created these trust documents, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And his understanding, based on what he said that Eric told him, was because Eric was pissed or upset about a relationship that Kouri had, correct? Or he thought she had.
I don't remember the specifics of that part of the interview, but I do remember that JS was aware that Eric had made the trust.
And he doesn't specifically say anywhere in that interview that the trust was made because he was mad about this home equity loan, correct?
JS expressed to us that he understood that the reason that Eric created the trust was to ensure his son's well-being if anything were to happen to him.
And he also expresses to you that because you asked him why it wasn't changed back, or because the sister was made the trustee, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
The sister, so in those trust documents, sorry, that was a terrible question. In those trust documents, the sister was made the trustee, correct?
From what I understand, yes.
And you asked JS specifically, or somewhere along the lines of, if they were doing so well, why would he have not changed that back?
Yes.
And he tells you that it was his way of ensuring that even if they were doing well at the time, if there was a divorce, he would get the last word in it, right?
I remember him using that phrase, getting the last word, yes.
All right. Now, you also testified today about this hunt that took place down in Mexico, right? Correct. And this hunt was February of 2022, correct?
I don't know specific dates, but I'm aware that Eric was on a hunt in Mexico shortly before his death.
And JS tells you that he was really upset, actually leading in the days right before he passed away, about what had happened with this hunt, right?
Yes.
And he was upset that they had paid an outfitter for a number of permits that they believed the outfitter had procured, correct?
Yes, from what I'm recalling, he was upset about the outfitter or the guide had not gotten enough permits for the amount of animals that they ended up taking, and it caused some concerns over legal requirements of tagging animals.
Okay. And getting the cape or anything else, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this is the same, is this outfitter the person that you investigated? Or that you interviewed?
Someone associated with that hunt and that outfit, yes. I'm not sure the exact association, but a contact for that outfitter.
Okay. So that outfitter was aware that they had made some serious problems for Eric with regard to how many animals they took in Mexico, correct?
According to JS, yes.
And in your subsequent investigation, you know that Eric had had some heated conversations actually the night before he passed, or the night that he passed away, with that outfitter, correct?
We received information about that, yeah.
Okay. In fact, he was searching how far it was to drive from Scottsdale down there, correct?
Correct. Well, his phone showed that search.
Okay. And JS also told you that he had information or believed that this outfitter was somehow connected to the cartel, correct?
I don't recall. That sounds familiar, but I don't recall if those were the words that he used.
But essentially, he was
JS made a statement about the cartel when he was talking about Eric and that hunt, yes.
Okay.
Counsel, would you approach for a minute?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone who joined us, and thanks for being here, everybody. Please hit the like and subscribe if you haven't done so. We're going to be following this case. Again, that was just part one. We've gone longer than we usually go, and hello, Melissa Jade and everyone else. Yeah, exactly. Buckle up. You know, as soon as they mention the cartel, they do like a little sidebar session, and there's part two and all that on Court TV if you guys want to watch it to get caught up. So we're going to be following the updates. I really appreciate you all being here. Good chat going on, even when I'm on mute. I really appreciate your guys' opinions in the live chat, and replay viewers. Thank you for being here. Comment down below your thoughts and all that. Just want to thank you guys for being here, and we'll talk very soon. We'll be following this case in Idaho 4. I'm trying to think, like, of course, there's a whole bunch of other cases that we talk about in our Facebook group. And yes, I will pin the Facebook group in the comment section in case you guys want to join our discussions over there. You'll probably see me, Marshall Dove. I don't know. That was one of my first pet peeves. The hair part. I'm actually trying to do the middle part. It's like the trend now, but I've usually always done like a side part, but not as far over as Kouri's part. It's weird though when you change your part of your hair, isn't it? But anyways, guys, we'll talk soon. You'll see me in the YouTube streets. Alex Erickson, Titanium Built, Criminality, CDT,
there's a bunch of other channels that I just pop in their chats and just, Melissa Jade, soak in everyone's different opinions. And I love seeing you guys in their chats as well. And yeah, I just think that there's a lot to kind of absorb with Idaho 4. I wanted to take a break and kind of dive into this one a little bit. I'm going to watch some more of this entire hearing, which I have done in bits already. The first 12 minutes for those who joined later is just some clips kind of recapping a lot of what we know so far. And thank you all, Holly and everyone else, Elizabeth. Thanks for all being here. And we'll talk very soon for sure. So bye, guys.